Yeah. Boom to the hail, you sports fans out there in the tubosphere. To you, the individual as part of the collective. Welcome to Fast Track Sports Track Highlights here on Talk Radio version of the OMSR. I am your brief but concise host, Will, the alternative ESPN Sports World. Talking briefly and concisely about bracketology, breakdownology. Second year of the OMSR is done. This, always do a little show like this, let you know the clip order coming up and the whys and wherefores to get a significantly longer highlight reel. Plus, the quickie sport rant of the segment. All the video highlights courtesy to ESPN. Yo, everything else to the OMSR. Alright, specifically the South region. And this is taken from Crew 2. And no difference in quality. I'm just saying they're different as opposed to Crew 1. You know, sort of the headliners, the MCs, the Reese Davises, the Jay Wills, Digger Phelps, Jay Billis, and Dickie V, whom I'm going to start calling Dookie V. Their analysis tends to go on and on and on. Well, not on and on, but the difference with Crew 2, you got Dan Dockage. You haven't seen Dan Dockage, do analysis on a Big Ten game? You're missing some great entertainment there. Miles Simon doing a great job this year on analysis as well. Chris Carter being your lead man anchor since college football spring news from last year, making them black frame glasses work, and Bruce Pearl. So on the quickie sport rant to the segment with regard to the South region, I covered a lot of mid-major tournaments, and I noticed on the line there, here's Dayton. What's nice about this year's tournament is you're seeing a lot of schools in there who haven't been in a while. And gone are the Ionas and the Winthrops and the Western Kentuckys. These schools get in, year out, and don't make a whole lot of noise. But Dayton gets an at-large from a mid-major conference. Putting on the line there a play-in game for two schools who won their tournament. Now, does that sound right to you? You're on the 16-line play-in, and Dayton gets what was their seeding on that? A 12? 10 to 12? So that already renders the 15 mid-major tournaments that I cover. One of them is going to be out of it before they even get a chance to really have a chance to make any noise. So Dayton keeps getting this kind of like respect over the years. We're seeing them year in, year out. There's no Davidson this year. There's a lot of schools, mid-majors you're not seeing this year. But again, with Dayton, I got nothing against them. I'm just saying those other two schools, who was it, Albany and Mount St. Mary's, they won their tournament. They should not have to be in the play-in game. Thanks for watching. No silly DUIs while you're out there. South region coming up. Roll clips.
Like carving pumpkins in late October, or hanging lights on Christmas Eve. Filling brackets is a must in March. Study it, fill it out, burn it up, start again, hand it in. Show those boys in accounting who knows who's best. 3 weeks, one word, madness.
Each one of these three guys fill out their own private brackets, then we handed them to us. We combine them into one super bracket, not necessarily in all agreement here. You could have some dissension. We've had a lot of dissension, and we're showing you now that super bracket, who these guys think are going to win and how they're going to get there. Let's start now. Let's move on to the South region, where you've got Albany and St. Mary's playing in the play-in game in Dayton on Tuesday. The winner of that game will take on the #1 overall seed in Florida, and Florida gets to play in Orlando, so obviously they'll have the benefit of that one. Then another one of those interesting 8-9 games. Both of these teams, I think maybe a lot of people thought they might not be seeded this high. Colorado 8th, Pittsburgh 9th, and you guys have got Colorado moving on. Then down in San Diego, and Miles, I know you're going to be down there this weekend, VCU and a surprising team in Stephen F. Austin. Surprising because they just don't lose. They haven't lost since November. And you've got VCU moving on, but I know you're going to think that one might not be that easy, another one of those 12-5 matchups. And then on the bottom there in San Diego as well, UCLA playing close to home against Danny Manning and his new set of miracles down there in Tulsa, but UCLA advancing. Florida will get more into them in a little bit here, but first off, what about Colorado-Pittsburgh? Everybody in agreement that it was Colorado, all three?
No. I think they chose Pittsburgh, actually. They both chose Pittsburgh. Can I call a 20-second time out here? I know I don't have a job, but I chose 20. They went with my pick. I chose Colorado. Yeah, because it was a West Coast bias. That's why you went Colorado.
I think this might be second-guessing yourselves in this particular game.
No. This got no rep at all.
I have my bracket right here, and it says Pittsburgh, baby.
Of course. So why you like Pittsburgh? What do you mean, of course?
25-9. People sitting here and thinking Pittsburgh had a horrible year. They won 25 games. They're 25-9. Played better at the end of the season. They 11 wins in the ACC. What's not to like about Pittsburgh against a team who lost their best player? And they're from the West Coast.
Yeah, but a team who lost their best player and played well enough even without Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah, they had a little over 500 without Spencer Dinwiddie. They did a great job. Tadball's a terrific coach. But to leave Zana, who is going to match up with him from Colorado on the inside? He is going to be so much quicker than Josh Scott, I think.
Wesley Gordon.
And then Lamar Patterson, a big guy in ball screens. I think that's going to be a problem for Colorado's guards who are a little smaller. I think Pittsburgh properly seeded at 9. I did not want to see Pittsburgh get rewarded with a good seed. They didn't play a tough non-conference schedule. I didn't want to see them get rewarded with it, and they weren't. But I think
an appropriate seed.
It's an appropriate
against
seed.
A team that's going to be a good game.
Yeah, and so therefore, unfortunately for Colorado, they got to play a team that's better than that seed in Pittsburgh.
Colorado has to try to get the game up tempo. Want to play fast break. They have a little bit deeper roster, in my opinion, than Pitt does. Ncaa Booker has really, I feel, blossomed into his role as the point guard for that team, taking over for Dinwiddie. They're going to guard you. Brad Underwood, a former assistant under Frank Martin in his first year there, has his team rolling. Only 2 losses to East Tennessee State and Texas.
Yeah.
Last year, I sat right here, and I told you Florida Gulf Coast was going to go on a roll. I'm telling you.
I do remember that. I remember you saying
Stephen F. Austin, to me, you got to get back in coaching. Because everybody runs the same garbage. We need new offense.
Right.
Stephen F. Austin has great offense. You mentioned the guard play. They're balanced because of how they move the ball and they move people.
Brilliant half-court strategy.
No question.
But will VCU let them get into a half-court game? It's going to be full-court pressure, speed them up, slow them down, trap them, challenge them at the rim. And so Stephen F. Austin, used to getting really good high-percentage looks.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, VCU's athletes coming over there from the weak side, throwing them away.
I think they'll get better looks because of the guard plays. Like Michigan last year. Everybody said Michigan's going to lose at VCU. They don't have Trey Burke. Don't get me wrong. But they have guys that can not go to the rim, but guys that can find and make threes on the wing.
But I think when you have a tone setter on the defensive end like Brianche Weber, the guy who leads the nation in steals, that sets the tone for your defense, and he can disrupt what Stephen F. Austin wants to do.
And we're going to have more on UCLA a little bit later on. We all have them moving past Tulsa in the first round. Let's go to the bottom half of the South, where I think we, at least the consensus is, this is, if not the toughest bracket, one of the toughest brackets here in the entire tournament, because you look at some of the other seeds. You have your Ohio State and Dayton, a team on the bubble, getting in, though, and not having to play a play-in game. A lot of people thought they'd have to play in one of those play-in games in Dayton, but Ohio State moving on. Look at this. Really the first shocker we've had here, in Buffalo, no less. Western Michigan beating Syracuse. Now, are you changing your mind on this one, Dockage, or not?
I'm the one that led the charge. They're 12-1. Remember these two names, David Brown and Shane Whittingham. Whittingham has already been invited to Portsmouth. He's an athletic 6'10" kid, 6'11" kid that can shoot the basketball. I got a text from their coach, Steve Hawkins, today, and he's like, look, these two guys are pros. I'm not saying they're NBA pros, but they're guys that can have a chance. David Reed is sensational. I mean, now David Brown, excuse me, 6'3", 205 pounds, can get to the free throw line, had 32 in a conference championship game. Their only loss at Toledo in overtime, and Toledo's a darn good team.
Well, here's the deal. I coached against Steve Hawkins. I was at Southern Indiana. He was at Quincy. A brilliant offensive strategist, and I think you've got to be really good offensively to understand spacing, to get shots against the 2-3 zone. The key is to not turn it over. And then I think he's got a tough physical team. Got some Indiana, Michigan boys that will put the wood on you. And then I think we've got to face the facts. Syracuse perhaps overachieved this year. They're a tired team. They struggle on offense. Trevor Cooney, the only guy knocking down shots for them. And I just think they're vulnerable.
A tired team that is now going to have a week off to rest before they have to play again. So I think they get their legs back for the first game. Syracuse and Buffalo, New York, they're not losing there. 2-3 zone. Western Michigan has not seen a zone like this, and you can be the best.
We're trying to make it.
Nobody has seen a zone like that. But listen,
that's the same way you're talking about. He's the best. How many zone plays are you going to have? How many zone offenses do you have in your playbook? It's not that many that you can run against.
The New Mexico versus Stanford matchup, and I wonder why New Mexico was a 7 seed. Bruce, do you think they're properly seeded?
How could San Diego State be a 4, properly seeded, and New Mexico be a 7 when New Mexico, beat them at the end? I think New Mexico got the worst seed of any team in the field. They've got 3 pros on their roster. Noodles Neal's done a terrific job with them. And Dan, you said something earlier about the fact that last year New Mexico got upset by Harvard. I think the whole offseason, They are not going to lose a first-round game this year. They ain't having it. They ain't here, and I think they got all the motivation.
They're definitely motivated. I talked to Kendall Williams early in the year when I covered New Mexico. It's something in the back of their mind. But Stanford can give them a game for a couple reasons. Stanford has a very formidable front line with great size in Nastich, Powell, and Hustis. Hustis, the all-time shot block leader in Stanford history. And then Chasen Randall at the point can control pace, and he's a guy that can get 25 to 30.